Millennials is starting to feel that, they're coming off their parents, which became the me society, me, and they're having that thing and say they want to rebel against it. So they want to convert the me into we, and they believe the way they can change the world is somehow become a liberal society where no longer we care about ourselves, but we care about everyone else. What they don't realize is that doing good and doing well don't have to be mutually exclusive. As a matter of fact, even if you're the richest man in the world, you can only do a small good before you run out of the money. The only way you can do a large good is to actually create a profitable venture. If you care enough to solve the problem, then build a business that actually solves the problem. And if you make it profitable enough, you can go out and expand that and take it to billions of people around the world, or else you'll always be stuck for 100,000 people or 10,000 people or 1 million people. The day you start a company, ask yourself the first question: God forbid, if I'm actually successful in doing what I'm doing, how is it going to impact 1 billion people? And if it's not, why would you do that? So if you start a company, there are very few things you have to do. Ask yourself, what are you willing to die for? And then live for it. And if you can do that, you will find your calling. You will find the thing that you actually care about. And when you care about something deep enough, you will go out and solve the problem. And if you can make it profitable venture, then you will actually make a serious impact in the world.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with the Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 for my top 10, top 10, 9. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more. And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Naveen Jain, and my take on his top 10 rules for success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, push the envelope.
As you know, I started another company called Viome. And the goal there is really simple. What if we can create a world where chronic illness is a matter of choice? What if illness actually become optional? And people say, that's a freaking crazy idea. And you know you're onto something. Right?
Yeah.
So, about a year ago when I said, we are going to make illness optional. That was a crazy idea at that time. And a year later, now we have not only the technology, but the people who are actually doing it, right? So a crazy idea that a day before a breakthrough is a crazy idea, the day after it's an obvious idea, right?
Sure.
So we have now, head of the Watson research came and joined us to do the artificial intelligence to look at what's happening inside your body. Dr. Massier joined me to essentially understand how to interpret all this data. Dr. Yusevich, who was working at Los Alamos National Lab, it turns out they were working on a technology for biodefense work for national security. And the whole purpose was to know what is going on inside the human body.
Right.
So we took that technology, got exclusive license, put the team together, and now we launched the company where we are able to analyze everything in detail inside your body.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you some of the things that, not being a rocket scientist or not being a doctor, right? It still doesn't stop you from pushing the envelope and changing the way people do things, right? So, for example, the reason we were able to do our launch to the moon for so cheap is because we were thinking more like a software guys. Don't build a big rocket, start to build a smaller rocket and build another thing on top of that that can go off and take to the moon. Just like the software programmers do, they build modules, right? And the same thing happened in the medicine. Everybody is focused on therapeutics. You have Alzheimer's. How do I build a drug for that?
Right.
You have Parkinson's. How do I cure it?
As opposed to how do I prevent it?
That's exactly right.
Rule number 3, do what's healthy for you.
We are a walking, talking ecosystem. So if you think from a spiritual perspective or you think about from a larger universe perspective, We humans are part of this larger ecosystem we call environment. We as humans are environment in ourselves. The trillions of microorganisms inside us, we are an ecosystem. And when our ecosystem gets damaged because we are feeding it the wrong thing, then our body essentially starts to suffer. And same thing, when we start to impact our outside environment, our body starts to impact because we're part of this larger ecosystem. The thing that's most interesting is that it's only now that we are able to understand what is going on inside our body. It used to be completely a black box. And people always felt, for the time, they always wanted to eat healthy. But the problem was no one knew what was healthy. And so you will come up with these fad diets, but you start to look at the paleo diet, and you start to look at the ketogenic diet and the lactane diet, and every day there is a new fad diet. The fact is, you and I share almost the identical DNA. 99.9% of our DNA is identical. When it comes to our organism, our environment inside our body, less than 5% is the same. And that's the reason there is no such thing called inflammatory food or a healthy food, because a food that's healthy for you may not be healthy for someone else. In fact, the food that's healthy for you today may not be healthy for you in 3 months.
And explain for people why exactly that is.
Yeah, so first of all, if you think about it, that our bodies are extremely unique, as I said, and our ecosystem inside the gut, so every time you eat food, what's the first thing is encountered by the microbiome. And depending on their ecosystem, they're able to metabolize that food and either produce the nutrients that your body needs, or it can produce the toxins that actually hurt the body and inflame the body. So for example, spinach. Most people will think spinach is healthy. It turns out spinach is not healthy for me, and the reason is spinach has a lot of oxalate. And if you don't have the oxalobacter in your gut, it's actually not going to be oxalate cannot be metabolized by the gut microbiome. That means it's now being fed by someone else who is going to create lipopolysaccharides, which is LPS, which is going to cause inflammation in your body. So it turns out that as we have gone through now tens of thousands of people in our things, we find 30% of the people in our system today are, in fact, spinach is harmful to them.
Wow, I'm surprised that high.
Yeah, and more than interesting thing is 50% of the people that we see, the thing called polyphenol, everybody thinks the pomegranate juice is good for them, or the walnuts are good for them, or the blueberries are good for them. All of these are really good for about half the people. Other half, you're simply wasting your money. It does nothing other than stressing and harming your body because you do not have the right organisms to be able to digest them.
Rule number 4, create abundance.
It's very interesting is that human species, actually everyone thinks is greedy. And it turns out actually we as human species are very giving. In fact, giving and philanthropy and taking care of others is built into our DNA. So if you go back and look at the things when we were living in small tribes, we all realized that if our tribe died, we could not survive alone. That means taking care of tribe was something we did for our own survival. And I really think it's very interesting is that today, we believe it doesn't matter how much we have, we're going to always want more, and there is always going to be scarcity because people are greedy. In fact, we can go out on a stadium, 70,000 of us could sit in a stadium, and we enjoy the game without ever feeling greedy about air or oxygen. We never slap the guy next to us and say, stop breathing my air. This is my air, I paid for it. People just, all of us can enjoy air and oxygen because we inherently believe the air is in abundance, oxygen is in abundance. Now imagine if the energy becomes the next air that becomes abundant, that means it's democratized and it's demonetized. Now, every 90 minutes, more solar energy falls on planet Earth than we use in the whole year. It's just simply a matter of conversion. And that will happen. It is no different than if you go back a couple of 100 years ago, the most precious metal used to be aluminum. And the reason was because it was very hard to extract. pure aluminum, and we needed to extract from bauxite, which was extremely hard to do. Until the technology called electrolysis came about, it made it so cheap that we now throw it away. Now, what would be the electrolysis of the solar power that will make it so easy, so cheap that electricity or energy will become abundant like air, and it will be freely available to everyone. And if we have a free energy, an abundant free energy, you'll be able to get abundant, fresh, clean water. Even in the dirtiest places in Africa, you'll be able to distill the water, and all the organisms that people get sick from, that can all go away. Right? Now imagine the same thing can happen with agriculture. Same thing can happen with the food. What if we had abundance of food? What if everything that we value today, everything that we fight over today, what if all of those things become abundant, right? What is it that we fight over? We fight over land, water, energy. And you start to think about, if we can have abundant energy just like we talked about, abundant water that we talked about, and land, where is the scarcity of land? We are a tiny pale blue dot in our own solar system. Our solar system is a tiny dot in our galaxy. Our galaxy is a tiny dot in our universe. And our universe may be a tiny dot in this multiverse. Where is that scarcity of land we talk about? The scarcity is our mind that believes we cannot live anywhere else. What if we can change that?
Also, if you want to have more self-confidence and self-belief, the science says it can take up to 254 days of consecutive action for the habit to stick. That's what I want for you. So I've designed a custom free program where I'm going to send you an unlisted video for the next 254 days to shift your confidence and belief forward. The link to join is in the description below.
We have a lot of heroes, but China movies, heroes always dead. An American movie hero never die. If all the heroes die, who want to be the hero?
If you have a great product, lots of people will buy it. And then the company will be successful.
Most of the best entrepreneurial ideas come out of frustration.
Rule number 5, question everything.
Anytime, remember, if you are an expert in that field, my best advice is not to go do something in the space that you know a lot about. If you are an expert, you are only able to make an incremental improvement to the things that are already being done. So I always tend to, this is my
Because you've limited your own way of thinking?
Because you take many of the things as granted. That means the foundational things that you have, you take them as granted. You don't even question them. That is how it is done. When you come from outside the industry, you're able to question every single thing that people have taken it for granted. So if you think about, this is my 7th company, and I've never started, no two companies have ever been in the same industry.
Wow.
Right? When I started space, I had no idea how somebody's going to go to the moon. My first question when somebody asked me that was, I have no idea, it keeps moving. Every time I target, it moves. Then I understood there is orbital dynamics around it, right? That became really easy. So I was known as the space junkie because I started to learn about space. And then when I saw this technology at Los Alamos National Lab, that they are able to analyze the body, every single thing that's going inside, it was fascinating enough. Then I said, you know what? I am going to go start reading. And when I go, my first approach is to go find 10, 20 books that I can read. I never like to read one book because then you are more or less that person's belief system becomes your belief system. Yeah. So what I do is I read 20 different authors because then I want to see where the people differ from. So I can form the opinion because now I know what everyone else is saying. Then I start reading all the science journals.
What do you do when you encounter something, though, that you don't understand? Like, the microbiome is so vast.
So the thing is, you need to understand the basic vocabulary. So as you know, I'm also on the board of Singularity University. And being on the board of Singularity University, it gives me the basic background of what is genetics, what is epigenetics, what is the nanotechnology, what is the neuroscience, and the basic vocabulary. Once you have that, you're able to make a lot more sense when you read the articles, when you read the books. And then what I do is in each subject that when I'm learning, I set my Twitter feed only for the science journal, only in that field. That means I'm going to be looking at the Science magazine, the New Scientist, and every single science magazine that has the articles about that subject. And when I wake up in the morning, I get up around 4:30 in the morning, and I spend the first 2 hours just going through every science journal, what has come out since I went to bed.
I love that.
Right? And then once I know that, then I start to learn and start to ask people. I would call the authors of the book. I'll meet the people.
Rule number 6, change lives.
I came to the United States 35 years ago, and I had $5 in my pocket, barely spoke the language, right? And God has been very, very kind to us. I mean, any which way you look at it, every single day I feel we are so blessed. This is my 7th company, and knock on wood, everything that I have done so far has been really, really successful. And to me, I am more focused on making an improvement in people's lives, because the people who helped me become who I am don't need my help. And that is one of the worst feelings you can have, is when you can't pay back the debt you have. You know there are people who helped you. You did not do it yourself. And you ask them, what can I do for you? And you say, nothing. Nothing. And that's the worst feeling you get, is that you have all this obligation to the society. What would you do? So if you can't pay back, you pay forward. And to me, that is really became who I am, is constantly focused on what can I do that will change the lives of billions of people around the world. It's not about money anymore, because, and that's something that I try to tell a lot of young people who focus so much on making money, that making money is like having an orgasm. If you focus on it, you'll never get it. So if you just enjoy the process and do the things that you love, you'll automatically get what you're looking for, but just don't focus on it.
Rule number 7, balance your gut.
Who are these organisms? What are their names? Are they named Paul and Tom and John? And it's Paul, Tom, and John, but is Paul the plumber, or is Paul the entrepreneur? Is Paul the electrician, or what is Paul actually doing? So knowing who they are doesn't tell you anything until you know exactly the function they are performing. So if you think about, by knowing the organism, it simply tells you what they could do. But just like any one of us, we have a potential, but we could be doing completely different things depending on what else is around us. So if you are with me, you could be calm and quiet. You could be with Lisa, you could be partying, right? So depending on who else is with you, you change your behavior, and simply based on what is being fed to you, you change your behavior. Basically, we have more foreign cells in our body than the human cell. When it comes to gene expression, our human DNA only expresses about 20,000 genes, and the microbiome in our gut produces about 2 million to 20 million genes. So at best, we are 1% human from a gene expression perspective, or worse, we are 0.01% human. Most people think of our DNA as our destiny. Our genes are our destiny. It turns out the genes are really not your destiny. It is obviously your microbiome, but even within the genes, it is a gene expression that counts, not the genes in themselves. And here's what I mean by that. Every part of our body has identical DNA. So our hair, our skin, our lung, our heart, everything has the same DNA, but they're completely different. It is the expression of the same DNA that causes the thing to be what they are. So that means nature has put together something called epigenetically. That means you can control what genes are expressed, what genes are overexpressed or underexpressed. Now imagine what happens. Our microbiome releases these things called metabolites, which are the small molecules. After they digest the food, they release these nutrients and metabolites that are absorbed in our blood.
As a reaction to what is digested.
What is digested.
Okay.
And then these metabolites are absorbed in our blood, and guess what happens? They start to epigenetically start to control our gene expression, right?
Dude, this is so important.
And that is really the key, is that they now can change the gene expression of what is going on inside the human body. Not only your immune system, whether it is underactive, overactive, and essentially, or saying this is a friend or a foe, they're training the immune system, but more importantly, they're also changing your gene expression. So for example, what they found was recently that the cancer is not only caused by the microbiome and influenced by microbiome. 2 weeks ago, they found that pancreatic cancer is the microbes moving from the gut, going to pancreas, shutting down the immune system in the pancreas, and let the cancer grow. And they actually found that if you're able to put the antimicrobial thing in the pancreas and use the immunotherapy, they shrank the pancreatic cancer by 50% in a few weeks, right? Wow. They found, the Mayo Clinic did the research about 3-4 months ago. They said the breast cancer is caused by the microbiome. They looked at 1,600 breast cancer tissues and found the same microbiome. What's more important there is
all the people that had that shared a similar microbiome.
Similar microbiome. Very interesting in the cancer tumor. But more important,
whoa. The cancer tumor has its own microbiome?
So cancer tumor had the microbiome. And here's the more interesting part. The therapy for cancer, whether it works or it kills you, depends on your microbiome. So the two research...
Your microbiome or the microbiome of the cancer?
No, your microbiome. So it's very interesting when you take a drug, whether it's a chemotherapy or it's immunotherapy. So chemotherapy drug, whether it actually works or completely creates toxins, depends on your microbiome. That
because the microbiome is
metabolizing these chemotherapy drugs, and sometimes it turns them into poison that is guaranteed to kill you. Other time it detoxifies it doesn't kill cancer, or it actually amplifies and allows it to kill cancer. Right? Immunotherapy, the same way. They found that certain microbiome would make it 10x more impactful for immune system to attack the cancer, or it actually doesn't. So whether even not just the cancer is caused by a microbiome, whether the cancer treatment works or does not work, depends on your microbiome. They found the same thing with PTSD. They found that depression is obviously the inflammatory disease. And when you fix your gut, I mean, even our customers, remember, we don't go out as Viome ever cure a disease. We fix the inflammation and we fix the balance in your gut. And some people will tell us that, hey, I had depression, it's gone. I had anxiety, it is gone. I had acne, it is gone. And there were 2 women who went on Dr. Oz show, and one of them lost 71 pounds. We were not trying to help her lose weight. She had inflammation and we fixed inflammation. People have autoimmune diseases, IBD, IBS, and you go through these diseases, which are simply the names we give to certain set of symptoms. The fact is, all of these diseases are fundamentally chronic inflammation that can be controlled through your diet, right? So the trick really is not saying what is a healthy food. You need to say it's not about the food, it's about me. What's healthy for me, not what's a healthy food.
Rule number 8, break down a problem.
One of the reasons people believe that it can't be done, because in their mind, it is impossible.
Totally.
The minute people believe something is impossible, it becomes impossible just for them and no one else, right? So now let's talk about living on the moon. Because see, how can you possibly live on the moon? Are you that naive to not know there is tremendous amount of radiation? How are we going to go live on the moon? So one of the things I'm going to talk about is how do you take the most complex problem and you start to break it down into simple things? And I want to give that mindset to everyone who's listening to it. So let's start with like living on the moon. When people say, you cannot live on the moon because there is such high radiation. And you say, stop for a second. Now let's see what technologies currently exist or needs to be created to make that possible. And suddenly you will realize that nature has already solved many of these problems. We find bacterial species growing in radioactive nuclear waste. Imagine what that means is, now the nature has figured out how to protect its DNA from extremely high radiation and use the radiation as a source of energy. Now, if we can take those bacterial genes, use CRISPR, which is a genetic editing technology, to modify the human genes in vivo, would it be possible to become radiation resistant?
Absolutely.
Now, the technology may not exist today, but would it be there in 3 years or 5 years? Absolutely. So now we say, okay, that problem is not in the beyond the realms of physics. It can be solved. Now is the next thing people say is, fine, I give that to you. How are we going to grow the food on the moon? And my answer to that is, that's a dumb question. The question you need to be asking is, why do we need to eat food? And then suddenly people say, oh, you're that stupid. In that case, let me tell you that. We need food because we need energy. We need nutrition. And I say, stop for a second. Let's analyze both of them. You need energy. The plants can get energy from the solar system like photosynthesis. Bacteria gets energy from radiation. Can't we use either photosynthesis or radiation as a source of energy? Yeah, that's quite possible. Now, it comes to now nutrition. What nutrition are we talking about? Well, we need hydrogen, we need oxygen, we need nitrogen. Hold on. There is a water on the moon. If there is a water, there is H2O. That means there is hydrogen, there is oxygen. We can break down the water and you get hydrogen and oxygen. Now, the nitrogen thing is pretty interesting. Let's think about how we're going to get there. Let's put that on the shelf. Now, living on the moon is simply about how do we get nitrogen to the moon. And that problem now we can work on solving. And that is really what I mean by taking a complex problem, breaking it down and saying, what is it that needs done to solve that problem?
Rule number 9, surround yourself with supporters.
I think what happens is as you start to gradually start to go in that direction, you start to surround yourself with the people who think similarly.
Yeah.
So to me, really is you become an average of the 10 people that you surround yourself with. And if you are a negative person, you tend to surround yourself with negative people, right? And the minute you start to think everything is possible, I can achieve any dream I set out to do, amazing things happen. The people around you start to change, right? Yeah. And that's what I tell people. The first thing you need to do is get rid of everyone around you who laughs at your ambition. When say, oh, you can't do that, Louis, you are nobody. You just look at yourself. How can you possibly think you could be reaching millions of people someday and you could tell them what you think? And they would have said, you are crazy, Louis. And you told them, that's okay.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is be optimistic.
It's hard not to be optimistic, and you look at the life in any which way. Today, we are better off than we have ever been in the history of humanity. And the next 10 years are going to fundamentally change the trajectory of how we are going to live, how our children are going to live, how our grandchildren are going to live. And I really believe that all the tech changes that we have seen in the last century, we have seen nothing yet. The next 10 years are going to fundamentally change everything that we know about who we are as humans, and we'll be, making a trip to the moon and the Mars, just like make a trip to the Florida.
Now I've got a really special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? The science says that when you just watch a video, you get motivated, you get inspired, you have a 35% chance of following through on your goals. 35%! That's not enough! That's not enough just to get motivated. Believe Nation, we're here, you're here. Today matters, you're an action taker. When you commit to a plan of action of when and how you're going to follow through, when you write it down, you have a 91% chance of following through. And when you commit publicly to somebody else, it jumps to 95% chance. From 30-something% to 95% chance of you following through. Believe Nation, we need to make this happen. So question of the day, your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action specific for the next week. Put it down in the comments below, and I'm going to show on screen sometime next week to celebrate you.
At a compound in Mountain View, California, internet billionaire Naveen Jain is hatching a plan that could make him the world's first trillionaire.
Naveen, good to see you, my friend. Good. So Naveen, the team is working hard, as it usually is.
Of course.
Remember, on the left, we have our systems engineering team doing all the mechanical design. So we're going to land on the moon somewhere around here, close to where the Apollo spacecraft landed at the equator.
How did you pick that area?
Well, first of all, it's on the near side, so it's easily accessible from Earth. It's an area, the dark area are actually regions of lava plains, so they're not mountainous.
Not so long ago, it was the Soviet and America superpowers that were locked in a race to land on the moon. Now it's Bob and Naveen who are leading the competition to mine precious metals from its surface.
Are we still on track to land on the moon by 2015?
We're still on track, Naveen.
Initially, we thought the mission was going to cost us about $100 million. Do you think we can bring the cost down to, say, $50 to $60 million now?
Yeah, even less. Yeah,
even less?
I think the first mission will be under 50, and subsequent missions may be under 40.
When would we be able to tell your honey that I want to take you to the moon?
10 years.
10 years.
Not only will it be a honeymoon, but I can take my honey to the moon, and I think that'll be the killer.
If you can do that, that's real business. If we can go to the moon for $50 million and the cost comes down to 20, and we're able to bring back the things worth $500 billion, I don't care what anybody says, that's a great business. Somebody is going to create a $1 trillion industry in space, and we sure hope it's us. When you tell somebody what you're doing and they don't think it's a crazy idea, then you're thinking too small. So when you walk up to a party and people say, what do you do? Well, I mine the moon. Well, that's crazy. Well, I'm thinking big, right? What do you do? As a young entrepreneur, I learned several valuable lessons. But I think the most valuable lesson I learned was trusting your own gut instinct. It's not about the spreadsheets. It's not about the numbers. It is about what you feel in your heart. Just remember, there are so many variables in the real life. A spreadsheet can never capture them. The brain only works on the logic of zeros and one, and it doesn't know how to deal with a lot of the gray areas. Your gut, your heart, is a chemical computer. It computes things on a fuzzy magic, fuzzy logic. That means a lot of the times you will start to feel that something doesn't feel right. Never be afraid to fail. Entrepreneurs never fail. Their ideas may or may not work. And you know what entrepreneurs do? They pivot, right? Pivot is a way of saying, I have found a stepping stone to even bigger success. So the way you do that is always never let the ideas that has not worked become the failure of a person. I wake up about 4:30 and 5, and between 5 and 5:15, I am working on email, catching up on news, looking at the blogs, looking at the different opinions. Because people just don't sleep. I mean, they're working 24/7. Somewhere around the world, people are awake and working. So you're always constantly being bombarded with request, information, or just sometimes news. And so in the morning, I wake up and I, take care of my mind. And then after that, I work out, and that's taking care of my body. And then I do meditate before I go to work, so that takes care of my soul. Business is like a war. You have to be completely prepared. And unless you have mind, body, and soul really all ready for it, you just can't fight that battle. Go out and pursue your dreams. Even if you know nothing about what you're going to do, go out and do that. Every time you have a self-doubt, just remember that every single successful company goes through a near-death experience before they go out and become successful. It is the mindset. So people talk about people are optimistic or pessimistic. So they look at whether the glass is half empty or half full. To me, that's really the wrong question to ask. The only thing you as an entrepreneur to think about is, do I want to fill this glass? And the next question you ask is, what do I want to fill it with? It doesn't matter what it looks like. Your job is to imagine and dream about what you want it to be. The biggest problems are really the social problems. And if you can solve them, it's a massive opportunity. Dream so big that people think you're crazy, and never be afraid to fail. If you want to make $1 billion, all you have to do is solve a $10 billion problem. So go out and find a way to provide the fresh water to the humanity. Go out and find a clean solution for energy. Go out and find a solution to agriculture. Find a solution to poverty. All of these are $100 billion problems. So don't think of them as a problem. Think of it as a great entrepreneurial opportunity. And solving any of these problems will make you a billionaire.
Veeam, the billionaire formula is simple.
What makes a successful person? They go out and solve big problems. So you know how to make $1 billion? You solve a $10 billion problem.
Having already made his billions, he now unashamedly wants to use his business brain to change our world.
Let's focus on education, healthcare, energy, shortage of water, shortage of food, and I'm going to tell you how innovation and entrepreneurship can solve each of these problems. Let's look at education. Imagine if you are able to use a $25 tablet and build some type of a game that's more effective than a private tutor, and it's more addictive than the most addictive video game. Think about it. One day, a child is going to come to the mother and say, Mom, can I just play one more hour of math? Because I enjoy it so much.
Naveen has a knack of putting people under his spell, making his mission to solve some of mankind's biggest problems seem plausible in space and on Earth.
What if we can build an artificial intelligence system that can be used by a village girl? She'll be able to go door to door and able to diagnose the diseases where there are no healthcare, there's no hospitals, there are no doctors.
These are big ideas that could turn a big profit, but some of them seem a bit far-fetched.
What if we take a 3D printer on the moon, and somebody can go out and send the DNA of a bacteria or a virus, and we print it right there and leave it on the moon and watch it grow? Right.
These ideas, they're a bit out there, aren't they, Naveen? Don't people think you're just a bit mad?
Well, the point is that the reason they think it's mad, because they don't know it's already happening. The things that used to be science fiction are now becoming science reality. I think in a lot of the times, and this is just, it's totally off the topic, but people come to the conferences with agenda. They have a hidden agenda. They want to get something done. They want to be politically correct. They cannot be themselves, and they are told, never be vulnerable. Imagine what? You do not build the deep relationship with a person unless you can be vulnerable. Unless you can share your emotional connection with a person, you can never build deep connection. People measure their success when they leave the conference, how many business cards they gave and how many business cards they collected. Guess what? If you ever think you have more than 5 people that you met in the conference that you think you have a friendship with, you have friendship with no one. You have to spend time. You have to connect with people. You have to give yourself to them, and you have to let your heart in their hand and say, I trust you. And when you do that, that is the time you build a deep relationship. When you leave this conference, they become your lifelong friends. So make 1, 2, 3, or 4 those lifelong friends when you go to a conference. Find a like-minded person who is going out, going to go make the change, who is going to go out on a journey with you to go out and change the world. To me, doing well by doing good is my philosophy. That means you can create a great venture, and if the venture can do good, that becomes a philanthropic venture from my perspective. So to me, you can't create a $10 billion company by solving a $1 billion problem. That means you have to go out and solve a $100 billion problem. And it so happens those $100 billion problems are massive social problems, which are education, the healthcare, the clean water, the energy. And if you can go provide access to education and healthcare to billions of people around the world, and if you happen to make $1 billion profit, my hat's off to you. That's a great venture, and that's what we want people to do, is not to separate doing well from doing good, because you can do both, and that's how you create scalable, sustainable change. Well, the last and the most valuable lesson as an entrepreneur I learned was about the value of execution. Way too many people spend too much time thinking about the vision. We are taught that you have to build a better mousetrap. Every venture capitalist will tell you that to be a successful entrepreneur, you need a breakthrough innovation. Well, you have to assume none of us, or at least most of us, are not the smartest people in the world. There are lots and lots of great inventors out there. How are we going to be the person who's going to always build a better mousetrap? Well, to be successful, you don't have to build a better mousetrap. You just have to build a different mousetrap. And as long as you are executing well, the business always comes down to block and tackle. It's not about the great vision, it's always about the great execution. And you can always succeed by out-executing your competitors, not necessarily having the best product in the marketplace. And I think the Microsoft is a great example where they took a same product that other people may have had, but they executed substantially better, and today they're the market leader in the industry. Think differently. It's not about thinking outside the box. It's about thinking in a different box. If you become an expert in your field, you become absolutely useless in your field, because the day you become an expert, you become incrementalist. You think about incremental evolution. So if you want to disrupt something, go out in a completely different industry that you know nothing about, because then you're thinking in abstract. So never be afraid to talk about your problem to someone who knows nothing about your industry, because they will come up with the ways that you have never thought before. Making money is a byproduct of doing things that you really enjoy doing. It is never a goal in itself. And it's like having sex and orgasm. You have to enjoy the process and not focus on the end goal. As I was in college, I learned a couple of valuable lessons. One of them was passion. We have a lot of distractions in life, but there's something that is really important to us. We spend our waking hours and our sleeping time all thinking about that particular thing. Once you find that passion, you will find that it's no longer a work. It becomes your life. It consumes you. So find something that you're really, really excited about and devote your life to it. 7 years ago, when I started saying, we are going to go to the moon and we're going to mine for the resources, and people say, that's a freaking crazy idea. And when someone tells you it's a crazy idea, that means you're on the right path. Because dream so big that people think you're absolutely crazy. And when you tell them what you're going to do, and if they don't think it's a crazy idea, you're not thinking big enough. So think big. And the reason is, when someone tells you it is impossible, it becomes impossible for them, not for you. And the more people who tell you it's impossible, that means more people have taken themselves out of the solution. And now the field is yours on yours only, right? And that's just a different way of looking at it. So when I look at as an entrepreneur, I don't focus on what the world is. I focus on what the world can be. So don't look at the glass being half empty or half full. You focus on saying, is this glass worth filling? Do I want to fill this glass or not? Because if I do, does it really matter is half empty or half full? And if I don't, do I really care is half empty or half full, right? And that to me is really starting to think about every time you see something and you say, what is possible? What if? And imagine are the two amazing words in the English dictionary. So when I say, Louis, imagine, what happens is all your preconceptions go away and you're willing to open to anything that I'm willing to say for at least the next 30 seconds of imagining. And then you may come back and say, oh, that will never work. I have no science background. And by the way, my first company was a computer background. When I started that, I didn't even seen the computer in my life. So I have no computer science background. When I started a space company, I have no idea how rockets work, right? I have no idea of astronomy. I have no idea how orbits work. Is that I go and learn, and then I surround myself with the smartest people, and then I question them. Why can't we do it this way? And every time you question an expert, why can't we do it this way? And the first answer they always tell you is, it just won't work. And you say, tell me why it won't work. And they always say, do you know much about it? No, but why don't you explain that to me then? And by the time they finish explaining, oh, it just might work.
Right.
And that is the thing is, surround yourself with an expert and you keep questioning every single thing they are asking you to do.
How did you get the self-confidence to know that you could go in and maybe not become a rocket scientist, but be able to be in a group, not be bamboozled by them, be able to get them past their own limiting beliefs so that you could, build this extraordinary company or Enviome?
Sure. So I think it's just idea of bootstrapping. So bootstrapping is you learn a little bit, and then you learn more because you learned a little bit. So once you get the basic foundation and the basic vocabulary of a particular subject, then you start reading book, and then you get a lot more knowledge. And that allows you to learn a little bit more about a science paper, and you don't have to know a lot. And then I can go, and today, every time I read a science paper, I don't understand 80% of it. Then I go ask my guys and say, hey, can you look at this science paper and explain that to me in real English? What is it they're trying to say? Right? And now tell me, what is it that we can learn from it that we can apply? Road to success is a long road. In fact, I don't even know this road ever leads to a destination. We all have to know that as long as we are enjoying what we are doing, it doesn't matter whether we reach our destination or not, because we're always having a time of our life. Think about it. What if you're not enjoying what you're doing? What if you actually reached the destination and you looked back and found, for what? Why did you spend all this time trying to get to this destination that wasn't worthwhile? So what I learned was, spend all your time doing things that you really enjoy. And most importantly, enjoy and celebrate the milestones along the road to success. What is a success? Success is not about how much money you have in the bank. Success is simply about how many lives you've been able to impact positively. And I tell our children all the time is that, the best way you will ever know that you have become successful is the day you become humble. Because if you have an iota of arrogance left in you, that you're still trying to prove something to someone or yourself, that means you're not successful. Success comes from when you don't have to tell someone, you know who I am. Right? You just be yourself, right? And you go out and do things that you care about. And what is it that you're passionate about? What is it that you're willing to die for, and then you live for it? What if that was if you had everything in life, what would you do? Today's world, the philanthropy is considered where you give the money to someone, and if you don't give the money, you are a bad person. Somehow you don't care enough. And to me, philanthropy should never be about giving money. Philanthropy should be about solving a problem. So this lady came to me saying, we have done such a good job in our current homeless shelter. We really outgrown it, and now we need to expand it, and we have this capital need, and we want you to donate to it. And I said, instead of asking for a donation, why don't you start to think about like a business? And I am a venture capitalist. And if you came to me saying that give me this money that is going to go out and do something with it, there are only two choices you're giving me. Either you're going to fail in doing what you're doing. In that case, the money is wasted. And if you do succeed, you're going to come back and ask me for more money. So how is that going to be a sustainable business model? And she said, what do you really mean? I said, ask yourself a question just like any other business. What is your product and who is your customer? She looked at me. All she wanted me to do is write a check and not be interviewed. And she said, it's really simple. All I'm selling is the homeless shelter, the place in the homeless shelter, and my customers are my women who come there. And I say, young lady, you have a broken business model. And she said, why? I said, your customers don't pay you. Right. I said, they're not your customer, they are your users. And she said, how else would you think about it? And I said, what if, just like a Facebook, the social networking is not their product. The people who use social networking is the product. You and I are the product, and their customer is the advertisers. In the same way, in a women's shelter, the women are the product, and local businesses are your customers. And the more products you have, the more you can cater to the local businesses. So why don't you go to local businesses and say, I have this amazing product. The women who are so driven that they would go out and do the things you want them to do. You will have a loyal employee, you will teach them the skills, and you will have these people working, and you'll be doing good for the society, and you'll have a loyal employee. And if you do that, the more people you have in your shelter, the higher the revenue you're going to have, and you'll be continuing to expand that. And just that thought process, she implemented, and suddenly now they're growing everywhere. Another lesson that I learned as I was growing up from my dad was value of honesty and integrity. These are the cornerstone of everything we do in our life. Each one of us has this conscience. It tells us what's right, what's wrong, and what we should do and what we should not do. Many of us, or some of us, stop listening to this voice. So just remember, when your conscience tells you it's something not right, just don't do it. The value of honesty and integrity is not just about being honest to others, it's about being honest to yourself. It's easy to fool others, but it's very difficult to fool yourself. So just listen to your own voice and be truthful to yourself. What is it that people fight over? We fight over land, we fight over water, and we fight over energy. And if you look up, there's an abundance of land out there. There's an abundance of water in all the comets and all the asteroids. And you start to look and there's abundance of energy. Our solar system, even the planet Earth, even in our own galaxy, we are a tiny pale blue dot in our own galaxy. And there are trillions of these galaxies in this universe. And there could be trillions of universes in this multiverse. So where is the scarcity? The scarcity comes from in our mind because we believe it's not possible. So we believe the only place we can live is this planet. And that's why everything that we value today, because they are scarce. But what if we can create abundance of food, we can create abundance of land, we can create abundance of energy, and we can create abundance of everything that we value? And people still say, well, humans are just greedy. It doesn't matter how much they have, they will want more. And then I remind them, we are really not that bad people. Because when you look at air and you look at oxygen, we have learned to live together. We can all be in the same room and we never said, hey, Louis, you're taking my oxygen, move away. We don't, because we inherently believe it is in abundance. And that mindset, if it's in abundance, we don't value it and we don't fight over it.
And there is no doubt in my mind that we have access to these exponential technologies that can create these abundance of food, abundance of water. And we can talk about that a little bit more.
The most important trait you can have in your children and in yourself is to have intellectual curiosity. So the intellectual curiosity is what makes us who we are. The day we stop being intellectually curious is the day we die. And then we become zombies. And we know so many zombies in this world. They have absolutely no interest in anything else.
So you've made a great analogy in the past, which is don't worry about whether or not when you lead the horse to water, it will drink. Focus on making the horse thirsty.
Yes.
I know there's a lot of parents watching this. How do you make your kids especially like thirsty for knowledge?
And I think that's really interesting is that, most parents and the teachers think their job is to, take them to the water and then hoping and pursuing them to hopefully they can drink the water. Our job as a parent is to make them thirsty and never take them to the water, because once you make them thirsty, they will find the water. And the way you make them thirsty is by allowing them to be intellectually curious. The minute you start to teach them how much fun it is to learn about something, to be able to go out and do something with it, and if you can start to show them that it is not the money that drives the society or who they are. The interesting thing about entrepreneurs is that they see opportunities where others see none. Well, that sometimes can be very difficult because the grass is always greener on the other side. We constantly see opportunities, and most companies, most entrepreneurs fail because of indigestion rather than starvation. That means they're trying to do too many things at the same time rather than too few. So find something that you're passionate about, stick to it, and provide focus.
And so what is the mindset of abundance?
So mindset of abundance is really clear. You do not think that anything is not possible or anything is scarce. The reason we find things scarce is because we think that what is being done is the only way of doing things, right? So for example, 50 years ago, one of the rarest thing was something called aluminium. It is plentiful, abundance on earth, but it's never in a pure form. It comes in the form of bauxite. It was extremely rare. Nobody could purify it until the technology came along called electrolysis. And then aluminum became abundant. We have the Coke cans we throw away. We use them for everything. It was simply people found them to be rare because they thought in a certain way. So when you start to think that everything that we value on earth, earth is nothing but a tiny dot in the galaxy. There's nothing that we fight over that we can't have abundance of, whether it is land, whether it is water, anything that you think, whether it's called rare earth elements, they are called rare earth elements. They are not called rare moon elements. They're not called rare Mars elements, right? Anything that you find valuable, scarce, can be had in plentiful. And you talk about education, you talk about healthcare. The reason they are scarce is because we continue to do the same things in the same way that has not changed and disrupted in the last 50 or 100 years.
So you've got a business called Moon Express, right? Moonshot. Moon Express or Moonshot?
Moon Express.
Moon Express. And you're literally taking people to the moon. Is this right?
Well, so our goal really is to create the multi-planetary society, because after all, we're all living in the same spacecraft called planet Earth. And whether we destroy it ourselves or we get hit by some large asteroid, we'll all become dinosaurs. And that's definitely something we don't want to do.
Right. So you're looking to, what gave you the inspiration to try to go to the moon, though?
So I really think a lot of the inspiration came from just growing up with a very humble background in India. We didn't have a lot of resources. We didn't have our days. We didn't have food to eat. We didn't have place to stay. And really looking up at the moon, it was something about it that you could see and feel for a second that you are the richest man in the world, because the richest man in the world cannot be looking at it any differently than you are. And it felt like you could be anybody you wanted to be. And to me, the going to the moon really was symbolic for me about what individuals and a small group of people are capable of doing. And so for me, it's
obviously going to the moon is an amazing business. So if I could rephrase John F. Kennedy, it will sound something like, we chose to go to the moon not because it's easy, because it's a great business. And what makes it a great business is there are 16 quadrillion worth of minerals on the moon. What's really amazing about it is it is a planet, a celestial body that is almost like our 8th continent of the planet Earth. And once we can learn to live on the moon, and that is so close, and very similar types of problems as living on the Mars, we can next look at the whole space as our own backyard. We could be living on Europa and Titan and Mars and anywhere else.
If you want 10 more amazing rules from Dr. Stephen Gundry, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
I think one of the things that was probably one of the most controversial statements in the plant paradox was that your bad health is not your fault.